Ask Reddit. What weird thing did somebody tell you that they shouldn't have felt so comfortable telling you? A strange co-worker, whom I wasn't ever close with, decided to tell me at work, across the entire office, that she and her husband were having marital problems due to lack of sex. He wanted more sex. But since she wasn't trying to get pregnant, she didn't see the point and said he needed to get over it. This happened loudly, out of nowhere and with no prompting. What made it more uncomfortable was that she was our HR person, business partner of my then boss, that had just introduced himself to me. Nice team you've got here. We should all go on a trip to Thailand together. You conduct prostitutes without protection over there. They all have documents from their doctors showing that they're clean. Dude was also married, with 2 young daughters. What the actual duck? Years ago, I lived in Florida. My girlfriend, now wife, and I went to a Chili's one night to get some drinks with her co-workers. After they left, we went back inside to the bar for one more drink because it was still early and we lived nearby. This older guy walks in and sits down a few stools away from us and immediately starts giving us some light-hearted shit about football, then notices my girlfriend typing something on her phone. Within 60 seconds of meeting us, he decided to drop this, "Oh, do you like looking things up on phones, huh? Google my name." We Google his name and the first result is a news article that names him as the victim of an attempted murder-suicide by his wife. She shot him in the head, then shot herself in the head right after. She died, he didn't. Police came after a call of shots fired. They found him unconscious but alive. Med-flighted him to a hospital and he woke up later that day. And that was his icebreaker story. Edit. Grammar. Chatting with another mom at the park. Now we can chat about some pretty weird things. Like, discussing your kids' pooping habits would be a normal conversation. Even to some extent discussing how things are going in the bedroom isn't that weird. But I've had some weird things other moms have confided to me. The one that stands out was a mom who confessed she was a closeted lesbian, in a loveless marriage, who has a huge crush on her teenage son's girlfriend. It got even weirder too. My sister told me she was getting her tonsils out, so that she would give better head. Come on, stepbro. My tonsils are out, I have more room now. Okay, Starbucks barista here. I was working the drive-thru and some lady comes in asking for an iced coffee with heavy cream. I pay it no mind as it's not even close to my weirdest order. She gets to the window and starts trying to explain the motifs behind getting this drink. By the way, I'm not getting this for the caffeine. I'm constipated. Whatever still hasn't fazed me. I'm used to weird shit like this. She continued, I tried an enema 2 days ago and that bullshit didn't work at all. That's where I had to stop and go to the back to breath. I was not ready for that. I don't know if this qualifies, but some drunk girl said I would be a nice, weekday-only boyfriend, very casually, and that felt like a very backhanded compliment to drop on me so suddenly. Let's not call that a backhanded compliment and say it's just a compliment. The only implied insult is that she's too immature to have a successful relationship. Kind of related, in a previous job where I was in senior management, I had an employee come to me and ask to speak privately. He said he needed a few days off. He had just found out his son was being molested by a neighbor. He needed to be at home and deal with his son and the police, but didn't want anyone else to know, for obvious reasons. I told him to take the time off and that I would take care of things for him. I told scheduling and HR that he was to be given 3 days off, and the HR manager pestered me to know why. I told her I couldn't say, but it was a legit reason, and that's that. She was pissed. Demanded I tell her, and even got the regional manager involved. I told him to drop it. That I was going into details. It was well within my power to make that decision, but the HR and regional managers were both cunts. They told me if I didn't tell them, there would be consequences for me. I told them clearly to drop it, that it was a sensitive subject, and the employee took me into his confidence. End of story. The employee wasn't one to take excessive time off, and he had sick and vacation time, so I told him there was no reason to make this an issue. The weird thing is, I didn't have a particularly good relationship with this employee. Not sure why he told me, as he was friends with another of the senior managers, who could have taken care of this for him. But I was known to be an employee-first manager, and I still am. I suppose he trusted me, despite us having some differences. It was quite a heavy burden to take on, knowing what this guy was going through. But you don't always get to pick your battles, sometimes you just have to fight them. I never did share the reason why I allowed the time off, even after several of the bosses cornered and pestered me. In the end, I was let go for others' reasons, standing up for another employee. But feel this incident contributed to it. Duck him, I would do it all over again. Right is right. I met a professional acquaintance at a friend's show one night. We knew each other vaguely, having met a couple of times, so we started having small talk. The guy obviously had gotten one too many beers, and felt it was a great time to tell me all about his dumb moves from his early adulthood. How his fiancée cheated on him with his best friend, and how he became an alcoholic. Alright, definitely awkward, but manageable so far. It took a turn for the worse when he suddenly felt comfortable enough to describe, in details, how he and his friends had raped a teenage boy that was blackout drunk. The acquaintance and his friends were drunk and thought it would be fun to do that while the boy was literally unconscious and unresponsive. I knocked the duck out of the conversation right after that and hope I'll never run into him again. Over my working life, different women co-workers have shared some pretty intimate things, having the runs, how much difficulty she had getting her BF to duck her, explaining her dating, sexual history of the prior 7 years, with diagrams. The diagrams woman sounds funny though. A while ago, my now wife, then my fiancé, and I were preparing to get married here in Austin. We spent several Sundays visiting some of the churches in the area that might serve as the ceremony venue to get a feel for them. We visited one beautiful, fairly large, older church near downtown. At the appropriate time in the service, the minister, priest, an older gentleman, roughly late 60s-ish, started giving an odd sermon about tithing and how the parishioners had been letting the church down, and in a way they were stealing from God by not giving enough. It was a bit of a strange one, and it didn't seem well constructed and thought out, much more on the fly than sermons I was used to. Anyway, after about 10 minutes of this, he wrapped up and asked everyone to bow their heads for prayer, then immediately walked off the stage and started walking down the aisle. My wife and I were about 2/3 of the way back and in an empty row. The service was not particularly well attended. I'm thinking to myself, well, that was kind of a weird. What's he doing? He's heading toward us. Oh, God. While the congregation was still mid-group prayer, he walked to our own and slid all the way in until he was right next to me. Everyone was watching him, and now us, as they, Our Fathered, or whatever it was. We finished the prayer and then sat down for the offering and a song. He then leaned over and whispered, "Good morning." We shook hands and he continued, "I wanted to let you know that I just had a mental breakdown up there a moment ago." "Oh, hey. That's alright. I thought it was." "Great," I stammered in reply. "You're kind, but no, I'm kind of falling apart. I saw you two come in and recognized you and knew I didn't want you to take that sermon as typical of our congregation. I have to get going." It was a pleasure meeting you both," and he got up and walked right out the back door. We didn't choose that church. Cashier at St. Louis Bread Co. informing me she's on her period and flowing very heavily. I get it, I'm a fellow woman, but damn. It's a restaurant. Mom, this is a Wendy's. My coworker went into great detail, including a hand-drawn diagram, about how constipated she was after one of her C-sections. She said she was so uncomfortable that she asked her husband to try to dig some of the poo out of her butt with his finger. So she put a towel down on the bed, laid on her side, and he got to work. After some successful digging, she rolled over and noticed a butter knife on the bedside table and asked what it was doing there, to which he responded, "Well, it was too hard for my fingers." We are nurses. She told this story at the desk to a group of at least 5 people. We were all mortified. My comment from a different post but fits here as well. My mother told me she named me after a character of a book she had read, and she made me read that book. After I was finished, don't ask me why I finished that book, I just was like, what the duck did I just read? The guy in the book with my name was a ducking pedophile and literally died after not eating for a month because he loved that one little girl. My mum said it was the best book she had ever read. I got nightmares of it, but okay. Yes, I hate my name now. Had a super weird chick who lived in our neighborhood once who asked me if I knew the rules of polygamy and swinging. I was like, no. She then proceeded to tell me some long, rambling story about a house party that her husband was invited to, but not her, because they wanted to sleep with her husband but she couldn't come along to participate or watch or whatever. Her husband was probably 6'4", but weighed around 350 pounds. He was probably the original neckbeard. She was no prize either. I doubt anybody wanted to sleep with either of them. She also told me she hated sunbathing nude because her nipples always got super sunburned. Oh, okay then. My sociology professor decades ago smoking outside of class with some of the guys as I was walking into the building. Me, is the school going to give you crap for smoking with your students? Him. I could be doing something else with my students, if you're interested. And he winked. www. Your loss. That was your invite into the inner circle. D&D Fridays, Fight Club Sunday. This isn't weird but disturbing, and I was just randomly told this a couple of days ago. So there is this coworker. She's so sweet and cute and funny, but we don't really hang out because we're on different teams and work different hours. She was getting something from my section and I smiled at her and said, "How was your Christmas?" And she said, "Horrible. I was sexually assaulted by my grandfather." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, eyes wide, jaw to the floor. She stopped, looked at me and said, "I wasn't even planning on telling anyone, but you just have this air about you that seems comforting and trustworthy." We hugged and I told her if she ever needed to talk, she can message me anytime. I told my BF, who also works with her, and he said, "Do you want to go find the old ducker and kill him? That would be great, but I really don't want to go to prison. We'll just be there for her when she needs us." Still heart-wrenching. My coworker told me he hate ducks his ex while choking her sometimes. What? We can't discuss home life in the workplace anymore. I listen to you yammer on about your sick kids, Deborah. And strep throat is gross.